The Locked On Podcast Network has dropped their NFL Top 100 players, so who's representing for the Raiders and where were they slotted in at? That plus more on Thursday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for July 17th, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, you know we appreciate both. The show continues to grow each and every day because of your consistent support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day by way of YouTube. So we shout him out. We appreciate him. You can find him on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, as many of you do, we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line at 707-654-4693. As we normally do, we'll get your feedback in segment number 3 as we close things out. Calls, texts, sometimes even tweets. But today, just calls and texts. A lot of really good feedback about a lot of different subjects. So we'll do that as we close out the show. Segment number 2, the Raiders rookies. They report to camp today. That is exciting. The veterans report next week on the 22nd, and then it's full throttle, all things go. Will Jack Bech be in attendance, or is he closer to getting his contract signed? There's some moves that happened in the NFL on Wednesday that says very possible that he could be in camp sooner rather than later, but we'll talk all things Raider rookies coming up in segment number 2. Here is segment number 1, news and notes of the day, and the most of it has to do with the Locked On Podcast Network, their top 100 NFL players list. We'll get into that after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So let's go through this. We already went through the Locked On Podcast Network's Mount Rushmore exercise that they had us do. They also had the top 100 that they wanted to roll out. A really good exercise. Matter of fact, my man Ari did a lot of heavy lifting on the top 100. I wasn't involved in the top 100, but he did, and so did the rest of the network, and I think they did a really good job. So on Wednesday, they rolled out all 100. So you can imagine with the Raiders having a 4-12 season, they probably didn't have a ton of representation, but they did have a couple players that showed up on the top 100. First of all, Max Crosby representing the edge rushers, and then tight end Brock Bowers after a rookie. He showed up as well. So let's start with Max Crosby and the edge rushers. He was actually the 4th edge rusher on this list. So Myles Garrett came in at number 4, Micah Parsons at number 8, TJ Watt of the Steelers at 11, then came Mad Max Crosby, came in at number 15. Remember, he only played in 12 games and had 7.5 sacks. And then following him, rounding out the top 5 for edge rushers, Trey Hendrickson came in at number 20. But let's go through this. I don't think in any regular season that Max Crosby plays start to finish like he normally does. Remember, 2024 is the first season in his career that he missed time. Again, only played in 12 games and had 7.5 sacks. So if he plays a regular season, if he goes a full 17, I have no doubt about it, he's a top 10 player. He might even be a top 5, like Myles Garrett came in at number 4. Myles Garrett, kind of comparing him to what Max Crosby did, played in 17 games, had 14 sacks, and had 3 forced fumbles. I think if Max Crosby is healthy and plays all 17 games, and we know health is a factor and that, you can't always anticipate an injury or non-injury, injury-free season. But if he plays all 17, I think his stat line looks a lot like Myles Garrett, who came in at number 4. Again, I think we all understand what Max Crosby is and what he means to the Raiders and the National Football League when fully healthy. So Micah Parsons, again, he slid in at number 8. He played in 13 games, had 12 sacks with 2 forced fumbles. TJ Watt, I mentioned before, he came in at number 11, played all 17 games, had 11.5 sacks, 6 forced fumbles. That's big time right there. So when he's getting after the quarterback, he's getting sacks. He's also doing what Khalil Mack used to do really well, getting those strip sacks, 6 forced fumbles. And you remember a couple of those forced fumbles were against the Raiders, not necessarily on sacks, but remember he punched out the ball from Dylan Lobby when he was down there by when he got his first carry. Matter of fact, in his NFL career, here comes TJ Watt. Boom, he knocks the ball out. And multiple times he forced a fumble against the Raiders. But those are game changers right there, those forced fumbles. Max Crosby didn't have any of those. I would love to see him take his game to the next level and start to get those. And then Trey Hendrickson, who came in at number 20, played all 17 games and had 17.5 sacks and 2 forced fumbles. And by the way, he's led the league in sacks the last 2 seasons, and he's in Cincinnati there waiting to try to get something done with his contract because he's severely underpaid. But Max Crosby sliding in at number 15 after only playing 12 games, I don't have a problem with that. If he had played a full 17 and he came in at number 15, all right, now there's a conversation to be had. But no problem with Max Crosby coming in there at number 15. Of course, you can always give me your feedback at 707-654-4693. And the only other player and position that was represented for the Raiders in the Locked On Podcast Network's top 100 that they rolled out. This is the first time they've ever done that. I think it's fantastic. This network has really evolved into, a big-time network where it was at one point just podcasts. Now it's podcast, it's YouTube. They're having Mount Rushmore exercise at the top 100. There's so many things, drafts, all kind of stuff. Just continues to evolve. So the time that I've been with the network, I've seen so many changes, and they're all great improvements. So I got to shout them out as well. But the tight end position, George Kittle is the first tight end that comes off the board at number 22 overall, followed by Brock Bowers. Have no problem with that, right? ESPN, they did their rankings, their top 10, and they had Brock Bowers at number 1, and they said he barely beat out George Kittle. So there you go. George Kittle gets the nod on the Locked On Podcast Network's top 100. Came in at number 22. He played 15 games, had 78 catches, 1,106 yards, and 8 touchdowns. That was George Kittle, the 49ers. And as I mentioned, Brock Bowers, he was the second tight end selected on the top 100 list according to Locked On Podcast Network. Played 17 games, had 112 catches, 1,194 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Came in at number 38. So there's a pretty big gap as far as the players are concerned. Kittle at 22, Brock Bowers at number 38, but still just the second tight end. And that's how I really look at this. I mean, you could look at the top 100 and you could place players kind of wherever you want. I really look where they are on the pecking order of their respective position. Max Crosby was the 4th DN, only played 12 games. Brock Bowers being the second tight end, I'm fine with that, right? I mean, if he's second this year, then most likely if he does what we expect him to do, he'll be number 1 next year. Trey McBride of the Arizona Cardinals was also a rookie last year. He's the 3rd tight end on this list, and he came in 64th. So you want to talk about gaps. He went from 22 to 38 to 64 for the tight end. He played 16 games, had 111 catches, 1,146 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So also a stellar rookie season right behind Brock Bowers. He kept Brock Bowers on his toes, right? And if he had played 17 games, who knows what his stat line would have looked like. But Trey McBride, a very good, young, talented tight end in the National Football League representing the Cardinals, come in at number 64. And then the old man, Travis Kelce. He's the 4th tight end represented, and there was only 4 tight ends represented on the Locked On Podcast Network top 100 list. He came in 85th, played 16 games, had 97 catches, 823 yards, and 3 touchdowns. We know that that's Patrick Mahomes' go-to guy, right? The numbers might not say he had a stellar year, but when Patrick Mahomes needs it, he's looking for Travis Kelce. And normally, somehow, some way, Travis Kelce is getting open. But we also know he's getting older, so he's going to start to lose a little bit of that luster that he's had and dominated that position for so long. For the longest, it's been Kittle and Kelce and Kittle. Now there's a couple of other players that are involved here. Obviously, there's more than that across the league, but these are the big dogs right here. Kittle, Bowers, McBride, Kelce. You could say likely there in Baltimore. Also Andrews, he's a hell of a tight end as well. Buffalo's got multiple tight ends, right? There's plenty of tight ends around the league, but you could tell that these are the big dogs right here. So I think that was good representation. I have no problem with Max Crosby being the 4th highest ranked tight end on this list, and I have Brock Bowers. I have no problem with him being the number 2. So that's it. Possibly, if we're doing this next year and talking about this next year, there could be a guy in Ashton Genty on this list. Matter of fact, if he does what I expect him to do this year, I have no doubt he'll be on this list. Where will he be? Will he be the number 1 running back? Will he be in the top 3 as far as running backs on this top 100 list? Very possible. But the Raiders in a 4-12 season, or 4-13 season, I should say, with 17 games, having 2 guys represent, not mad at that at all. Now, wanted to get one more piece of news and notes in here before we get into segment number 2 and talk about Raiders rookies. And this really has to do with the Raiders rookies as well. On Wednesday night, Adam Schefter from ESPN tweeted out that another big domino has dropped in the second round picks. Remember, there's 30 guys in the second round that were unsigned due to what's going on with Tyler Shough, the quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. So Schefter says the next big domino in the second round has fallen. 49ers second-round pick Alfred Collins, the number 43 overall selection, reached an agreement tonight on a 4-year, $10.3 million deal that includes over $9 million guaranteed, and now is expected to trigger multiple second-round signings per sources. Until now, 30 of the 32 second-round picks remained without a deal. Collins will have 88% of his deal guaranteed, a huge jump over last year's number 43 overall pick. So it is a good sign, right? I didn't know if the players were going to hold out and say, we all want guaranteed money and we're all going to wait and hold out until we get it, since there was a couple guys in the second round and everyone's expecting Tyler Shook, the quarterback from the New Orleans Saints, to get a guaranteed deal. Well, just for a reference sake, Jack Bech, wide receiver for the Raiders, drafted in the second round, he was selected number 58 overall. So I expect 43, everyone past 43 is now going to start to slot in with their contracts and understand where they can go with guaranteed money. And I believe the number 58, I'm not 100% sure. He got, less than 50% guaranteed money a season ago. I definitely expect that to be up, since the number 43 overall is getting 88% of his deal guaranteed. So a good sign, because now Jack Bech isn't the guy that, was a domino to fall. Now he can, and the rest of the guys after 43 can start to slide in and get their contracts sooner rather than later, and hopefully get to camp, as the Raiders rookies report today. So let's jump into that right now. Raiders rookies reporting to camp. Who am I looking out for? Who am I intrigued? And who do I think may be making some noise that we'll be talking about by the time camp is over, when it's all said and done? We'll talk about that coming up next in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that is FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, right? Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Being at the beach is cool, but you don't want to get sunburned. And, FanDuel folks have been using it for a very long time to track your favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. Not to mention, fast to pay out. That always matters, and it makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. So whether you're placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like you're part of the action. And if you're new to FanDuel, cool. New customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open up the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Exciting day today. We've been looking at this day, and of course, we're going to be looking towards next week when the veterans report to training camp, but the Raiders rookies set to report today. Now, we're not going to get a chance to go and meet and greet and talk with them or talk with the coaches. We'll get that next week, but it gives us an opportunity to talk about who I'm intrigued by, who do I think will make some noise or create a buzz by the time camp gets wrapped up. And the reason I say this is last year we went into training camp. We were in Costa Mesa, California. We were all fired up about Brock Bowers, right? What was Brock Bowers, the number 13 overall pick? What was he going to bring to the table? How much was he going to shine? I think a lot of us were fired up about JPJ, right? Because he was a highly sought-after offensive lineman, had a heck of a career there at Oregon as a center, and I think that Tom Telesco being able to get him in round 2, we all got pretty excited about. But after that, it was like, okay, who else is going to step up, right? I mean, I thought he had a really good draft class on paper, but you don't win games and you don't go out there and participate on paper. So we didn't know who was going to step up. Little did we know that all of a sudden, a day or two into training camp, Thayer Munford was going to go down, and some guy in the third round named DJ Glaze, who the Raiders selected, was going to step up and be the right tackle. And all of a sudden, we're talking about DJ Glaze as a starting right tackle and really held his own, did a good job, the young man out of Maryland, and ended up playing right tackle all season long. So we ended up leaving training camp talking about DJ Glaze. I remember even going into training camp talking about Dylan Lobby from what we saw, from the rookie mini camp and OTAs and mandatory mini camp, how the Raiders were really putting an emphasis on getting him the ball. I thought, man, I think this guy's going to actually have some pretty big reps, right? I thought that he was a guy that, was going to carry the rock quite a bit, be another, change of pace back, catch some balls out of the backfield. So there was a lot of conversation about Dylan Lobby, a 6th-round pick from a year ago. There's a lot of conversation going into training camp about him, and we all know that didn't play out. Really didn't see a whole much from him. But DJ Glaze ended up being the guy that we talked about quite a bit coming out of Costa Mesa, and for good reason, because he really stepped up and I thought did a great job of being thrown into the action at the right tackle spot. So as the Raiders rookies report today, I'm thinking about who is going to, make some noise. Look, we look at Ashton Genty and we expect him to make noise. That won't be a surprise. 1st-round pick, those guys are supposed to make noise, right? Those guys are supposed to, be big-time playmakers and difference makers. That's why you draft them when you do. We'll obviously be paying attention to see when and if Jack Bech gets that contract signed sooner rather than later so he can get to camp, right? The 2nd-round pick. So that won't be a big surprise. I think Darian Porter, right? The young man out of Iowa State, right? The cornerback. He hasn't been a cornerback very long because we've talked about him so much. Shouldn't be a guy that we're going to come out training camp and be like, man, that guy really surprised me. Because again, we talked about him a lot. We talked about Dante Thornton Jr., the 4th-round pick. We talked about him quite a bit at the wide receiver position. Can he be the guy to stretch the field? So the guys that I'm intrigued by, and it's funny because I don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but I'm looking at the trenches. I really am. I feel like one of these two guys on the offensive line, both selected in round 3, are going to be the ones that we're talking about. Like, I think that they're going to really just like have something to say about the competition at the offensive line position. So round number 3, number 98 overall, Caleb Rogers, the guard out of Texas Tech. And then round number 3, number 99. So back-to-back picks, Charles Grant, offensive tackle out of William & Mary. I think one of those two guys we'll be talking about quite a bit once training camp gets wrapped up. And honestly, it'll probably be Caleb Rogers only because I feel like the guard spots are up for grabs. Right, I feel like Colton Miller is going to hold down the left tackle. You got JPJ at center. You got DJ Glaze at the right tackle. So I feel like the guard spots are really up for grab. Right, I know that they brought in Alex Kappa. I know Jordan Meredith did well. I know Dylan Parham's in a contract year. I know all that. Right, but I just feel like Caleb Rogers is going to have something to say about who's actually going to be the starting guard. And maybe he's not ends up being the starting guard coming out of training camp preseason, but I think he's going to turn some heads. It's just gut feeling. Right now, I could be absolutely wrong. It could be Charles Grant, the offensive tackle out of William & Mary. I just think he has a little bit more of a learning curve, right? Trying to get up to speed on playing the tackle position in the NFL. And who knows, maybe he's a guy that ends up kicking inside the guard as well. But I feel like one of those two guys we'll definitely be talking about once training camp gets wrapped up. And then on the other side of the ball, when you're looking at the defensive line, the defensive tackles, right? Round 4, number 135, Tonka, the Tonka truck, Tonka Hemingway, defensive tackle out of South Carolina. I think he's going to be a guy that we could be talking about, right? One of these two defensive tackles, I should say. I think that they're going to be a factor. And honestly, I think that they're going to need to be a factor. The other one is round 6 pick, number 180, J.J. Pegues, defensive tackle out of Ole Miss. I think both those guys are going to be in the mix in the competition, and we don't know what's going on with Christian Wilkins, right? The big free agent signee for the Raiders last year, only played in 5 games, and we know that he suffered a setback on the foot coming back from his surgery that he was having. And so, back in a walking boot. I'll be surprised if we see him next week when the veterans report. My gut feeling tells me he's going to start training camp on the PUP list. Who knows what they'll do in the regular season? Will he be on the PUP list going into the regular season? If he is, he'll miss 4 games. If not, maybe they take it week to week. I expect him to probably miss a little bit time early in the season. Probably return to action sometime in the first month. But again, that's just a gut feeling. That's not me reporting anything because I don't know. We haven't talked to the coaches. We'll do that coming up on the 22nd. This is just all kind of gut feeling and spitballing. So I think that one of these two guys, if not both, are going to be necessary for the defensive tackle and the rotation. Adam Butler is there. That's great, right? There's other guys that are there that could play that role that you can get excited about. But they drafted these guys for a reason. I think they expect one of these guys, if not both of these guys, to play some kind of role this year. And just from doing a little bit of research on these guys, I feel like that they have enough dog in them to be able to at least be part of a rotation their rookie year. So, there's guys that are going to be in the mix. There's going to be a lot of guys that we, see and talk to and they may make plays in training camp and preseason. These young guys or these rookies will definitely get an opportunity. But, one thing that stood out to me from what Pete Carroll said, matter of fact, during mandatory minicamp when he was talking about the rookies and the young guys and how they performed in camp, he said, look, we want these guys to perform really well. These guys went out there and they did everything they could. Obviously, they don't want them to make the same mistake twice, but he said if they get a lot of play right now, by midway through the season, all of a sudden they're guys that we could really rely on. So we know that Pete Carroll has a track record going back to USC, right? He'll play freshmen, he'll get them up to speed, and he'll play rookies. He'll get them up to speed. He has a really good track record of doing some good things with some young guys. So I'm looking at the trenches. We've talked about it quite a bit. I think that's the most important part of this team this year, the offensive line for obvious reasons, keeping Geno Smith upright, opening up holes for Ashton Genty, letting them go ahead and operate this Chip Kelly offense. And the defense is going to have to step up. Where the defense was a strength and going into the training camp last year, we all expected the defense to be a big-time strength. It got decimated with injuries, so it wasn't as good as it was supposed to be, and it still had its moments where it's really good. So the defense is going to have to step up. A healthy Christian Wilkins is going to be needed, but it's not guaranteed. So who's going to take that role? right? Jonah Laulu, is he going to be the guy that backs up Adam Butler and is in the mix, a heavy rotation? Is it going to be a Tonka Hemingway? Is it going to be a JJ Pegues? Is it going to be other, right? There's other guys, but we're talking about the rookie class right now. So I do believe, like I said, Caleb Rogers is going to have something to say when it comes to the offensive line competition, those guard positions. I would throw Charles Grant in there, but I think the tackle positions are pretty much sewn up as long as everything goes right with Colton Miller. We'll see what happens. The contract situation going. He's in the last year of his deal. He has no guaranteed money. I know he wants an extension, but he has not received one just yet. So assuming that he's going to be good to go, I think that the tackle positions are good. And I just think that the defensive tackle is going to be needed this year if Big Christian Wilkins can't go early on in the season. One of these young guys or both these young guys might be needed. So that's who I'm really focused in on, with the rookies reporting to camp today. Again, other guys can step up and shine. They had 11 guys selected. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Darian Porter from Iowa State. I say it all the time. Iowa State players, they come out of school prepared. Matt Campbell does a fantastic job there. So I have no doubt that Porter is going to be given every opportunity to succeed. Of course, Pete Carroll, defensive back, is his position. He coaches it. He played it, right? So he knows what he's looking for, and he's the prototypical Seattle Seahawk cornerback. He was a guy that got a lot of burn during mandatory minicamp and OTAs where he was actually the starter across from Eric Stokes. But that doesn't mean that he's going to be the starter in training camp. That doesn't mean he's going to be the starter in preseason. And it sure doesn't mean he's going to be the starter once the regular season gets going. They're week one. They're in New England taking on the Patriots. Now, if he earns it, he earns it, right? And Pete Carroll's going to roll with it, and he's going to trust with it. But, those guys that we've talked about, Bech and Thornton and Porter and obviously Genty, like those guys, those names we all have in the top of our heads. So those wouldn't be surprises. Those wouldn't be something that kind of catches me off guard. Just like I said, DJ Glaze caught me off guard from last year. I know Maryland guys do a really good job. I know they come in with a chip on their shoulder. Just ask Jacorian Bennett, former 4th-round pick from Maryland of the Silver and Black, right? He's got a lot to prove as well, already on his third coaching staff, third GM in 3 years into the league, right? So he's one of those guys from Maryland as well. But DJ Glaze, I didn't think he was going to all of a sudden come out of camp last year as a starter until he got thrown into the starting role and actually held his own against Max Crosby. And I know that GM Tom Telesco was pleasantly surprised by what he saw when they threw Glaze into the action. And obviously the coaching staff and the front office and everyone was really pleased with what they saw from him his rookie year. So who could possibly end up being this year's DJ Glaze? Again, there's certain household names that we all know, but there's probably guaranteed to be someone. It happens every year in training camp. We go in with a purpose. We go in with an agenda. We go in trying to focus in on a certain person or a certain position group, and all of a sudden we come away and we're talking about something totally different. It won't change this year, I promise you. But who is it that's going to step up? Who is it that we'll be talking about? 707-654-4693. As always, would love to get your feedback on that and every other subject that we've had here on the show or that we're going to have here on the show. As a matter of fact, we hear from you next. Segment number 3, all your calls, all your texts here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start off with a text from Jamie in the 805. He says, "Hey, Q, first off, thank you for providing the nation with Raider content all year round. You, sir, are one of the hardest working dudes in the business for sure. In regards to the Mount Rushmore of Raider legends, I say, what would a legendary Maverick do when given a task with rules? Yeah, toss the rules out the window and do whatever what the bleep he wants to do. Al freaking Davis should be on any Raiders-related Mount Rushmore, rules be damned. I say for me, Al Davis, Jim Otto, Howie Long, Charles Woodson. I appreciate all you do for us in the nation, Q. Keep up the grind, and please, whenever you can enjoy your family, love them tightly and go Raiders. Oh, yeah, I'm putting it out for the universe for you. Let's get Q on the game day sidelines. Peace, my dude. It's Jamie in the 805. Jamie, thanks so much. I do appreciate that. And, yeah, man, I keep throwing that. I keep casting that net out there, man. Hey, sidelines. I got you covered, man. All you got to do is give me the call, but still waiting for that call. I ain't acting like the Pittsburgh Steelers, though, just sitting next to the phone, waiting for it to ring, staring at it. Ring, like they did with Aaron Rodgers. I ain't that guy, but definitely continue to throw that out there. You're guaranteed to miss a shot you don't take. So anyone who'll listen, I guarantee to keep putting it out there. And I love what you said about the Mount Rushmore. Hey, forget the rules. We're doing this anyway. Trust me, when I was doing this on the Locked On Podcast Network, I fired back some emails like, hey, man, this is impossible. I can't do a Mount Rushmore without Al Davis on it. And they're like, Q, We just need your players. And I was like, all right. So I finally gave in because they weren't going to put it out there. They weren't going to publish it. So at least I passed it on to you. But your Mount Rushmore, Al Davis, Jim Otto, Howie Long, Charles Woodson, it'd be hard to find anyone that disagrees with that. Really good one. Fantastic stuff, Jamie. Thanks so much for the text. Appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Kells, the Raider in Seattle. He's calling to talk about all the Raiders content that we're pumping out here across the Locked On Podcast Network. Here's Kells, the Raider in Seattle.
Yo, what up, Q? Kells, the Raider, calling out from up here in Seattle. I was just calling to be like my guy. First, I want to just say shout out to you and shout out to Ari. Y'all be holding it down every day. You know I'm here. Yeah, I want to just say, man, look, man, you gotta ease up, man. You know, bro, you be doing this thing, and it's just a joke, but you do it. Look, you got the 2 shows now, you know, with the show after that started like 7:30 to 8:30. You know, that new thing you doing this Monday and Wednesday. But man, you got me feeling for more of this Raider information that you be putting out. You know, I love to hear about the Raiders, and it's like it'd be a Tuesday, and I'd be like, oh, let me get into the second. Oh, Monday and Wednesday. So I just wanted to just say I appreciate what the Locked On Network is doing. You know, giving those 2 shows, because I really love that. It even got me looking for it on days when it ain't even in there. You know? That's it. Keep holding it down. Kells the Raider. I'm out. Raider Nation. Let's rock.
Big Kells, thanks so much for the call, my man. I'm glad that, you know, we're able to provide as much as possible, and glad that you choose us, right? There's so many Raider content creators out there putting out great work now. I remember when I first started even doing this on this podcast network, the Locked On Podcast Network, there wasn't a whole lot. There really wasn't. And there sure weren't a whole lot when me and James Arcelana started doing the Black Hole Banter. And to see it evolve into what it has, I applaud it. And so for you and Raider Nation to choose this platform each and every day, that's awesome. I really do appreciate that. Even when you don't agree with me, you know, and you think that, you know, hey, that guy Q, he's a big dummy. That's all right. I'll be that big dummy, but you choose this big dummy all the time. It's like my guy Vegas Jess. I always tell him, I said, man, you're dumb. I can't believe you. I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, yeah, but you're going to call me on Friday and ask me what we're doing. Like, yeah, you're not right. So you're not wrong. So it's all good. But yeah, definitely appreciate that we're able to do this. And Raider Nation deserves these outlets that are out there, because for the longest, as you know, just like I know, the reason why I even wanted to get into doing this is because there was not Raider content out there. It took me forever to look for any kind of Raider content just to try to get up to speed. And then, but when I did find it, it was always old. So to be able to do this on the daily, that's the one thing that I love about this network, is that we're doing it on the daily. So we're not, you know, talking about something that happened last week on today's one show, right? I mean, I love the fact that we do it on the daily. But thanks so much for the call and the compliment. We definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Raider Dan in Rochester, New York. Says, Q, was listening to your episode about the Mount Rushmore for the Raiders. You definitely need a defensive player like Howie Long or Lyle Darth Raider Alzado. I do not think Marcus Allen deserves to be on the Mount Rushmore with everything that went down. And if his career was not cut short, I would love Bo Jackson on there. Jim Plunkett, Tim Brown, Howie Long, Kenny Stabler would have been mine. So many to choose from. Raider Dan in Rochester. Hey, Raider Dan, thanks so much for that. Appreciate you. And yeah, I mean, you can talk about Marcus Allen and what went down. And we know the falling out he had with Al Davis. And I know that he's, tied those men's up with the Raiders. And I know Mark Davis has tied that up as well and made everything good. Regardless how you feel about Marcus, still an all-time great Raider. Right. And I know he's had his time with Kansas City and some great things with Kansas City as well. But he did some special things with the Raiders, including being the MVP of a Super Bowl for the Silver and Black. Matter of fact, the last Super Bowl that the Raiders won. So I get it. And again, it's your Mount Rushmore, so I'm fine with that. Right. Whatever you want to do. Again, you going with Jim Plunkett, Tim Brown, Howie Long, Kenny Stabler. It's not a bad list at all. Again, not a list that I think anyone's going to disagree with. Right. And we'd love to see Jim Plunkett get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame sooner rather than later. Thanks for your text, my man. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Javen in Ohio. He's a new booty caller, calling to provide some hope to Raider Nation for not only this season, but also the future. Here's Javen in Ohio.
Hey, Q, it's Javen from Ohio, a long-time listener. I haven't been on the show yet, but I just wanted to call to give Raider Nation some hope for this upcoming year and really for the future. When you think about it, Q, I think we have the potential to have 3 of the best players at their position at one time. Really, you think of Max Crosby. There's not another defensive end that I would take over Max Crosby. The effort that he gives and not coming off the field, he could easily be in the conversation as the best defensive end. Brock Bowers, we know he was just voted best player at his position by his peers and coaches. And really, I don't see a reason why he would take a step back, only really improving. And then lastly, Ashton Genty. We know that he's a rookie, but man, the potential that he has at the end of the year, you could be talking about him being the best at his position at the same time. And when's the last time we can say that, Q, about this Raiders team? That we have three of the best players at their position, and really still young too. So I think a bright future's ahead, Q. I'd like to know your thoughts.
Javen, thanks so much for the call. As I said at the top, appreciate you being a new booty caller. And I think you're absolutely right, man. And really, if you think about the top 100 that we went through in segment number 1, what you just said reflects that, right? They already have 2 players in the top 100. Max was the 4th-ranked DN, but he only played in 12 games. Brock was already, at the top 3 tight end coming in at number 2, right? So that's boom, that's 2 of the spots, and he can easily be number 1, just like on ESPN they had Brock Bowers ranked number 1. Genty, he balls out this season. He's at least top 5, right? So there's already 3 guys. The key is, as long as you continue to draft really good talent, you continue to develop it, and all of a sudden you have the best of the best at multiple positions, you're giving yourself a chance. You just got to have really good drafts. You don't have to have those drafts that we walk away from and be like, I don't know about that first-round pick. What were they thinking when they got that guy? The questionable picks are the ones that Raider Nation and myself are so tired of talking about, and I didn't have any of those this year at all. Right? All 11 picks, right? The most draft picks that the Raiders have had. 11 picks by John Spytek after doing some wheeling and dealing, and I felt really good with it. Now, I'm not saying all 11 guys are going to be great. I'm not even going to say all 11 guys are going to make the team and be good, right? But they're giving themselves a chance. The more swings of the bat that you have, the more opportunity you have of hitting a home run, or at least getting on base. So I definitely like that. Javen, thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. It's got time for a couple more. This text comes from George in the OC. Good morning, Q. In response to what the Raiders should be, what Raiders should be in the Mount Rushmore, I believe the 4 Raiders that should be is 1, Jim Otto, Mr. Raider, 2, Howie Long, 3, Gene Upshaw, and 4, Fred Biletnikoff, as these players played their entire career as Raiders. Please let me know your thoughts. This is George from the OC. George, thanks for the text. Appreciate you. Love your opinion. And I saw a couple people say they should be guys that play with the team for their whole career. And that's just so difficult because there's some that are all-time greats. Like, I talk to Lincoln Kennedy all the time. Matter of fact, he's on the Raider Squad show. And he says, I identify myself as a Raider and only a Raider. But remember, he was drafted by the Falcons. Mike Haynes, I don't ever see him representing the Patriots, but remember, he played there first. Jimmy Plunkett, right? I mean, this guy was a 49er, was a Patriot before he was a Raider, right? I mean, so it's just, it's so tough to say, they had to play for the team their whole career. And then how do you do that moving forward because of free agency and the way that everyone's moving around? Like C. Wood, I can easily see Charles Woodson being on the Mount Rushmore, but, some could argue, including myself, that his greatest days were in Green Bay. Right, but he still represents as the Raiders. He represents Green Bay as well. So it's really tough, but I understand. And again, year 4, nothing wrong with that. Again, shows how much greatness has been in this Raiders organization. Jim Otto, Howie Long, Gene Upshaw, Freddie Biletnikoff. Those are fantastic ones. Thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Major Raider, calling from the nation's capital, calling to make a comment, and also has a couple questions. Here he is, Major Raider, calling from the nation's capital.
Hey, Q. It's Major Raider again, calling from our nation's capital. Wanted to make a few comments and then a question for you. First of all, mad props to you and Joe. I've listened to Joe for a very long time. Matter of fact, I remember him actually podcasting with Rob Pizzola back in the day. So very proud of you both. You guys are doing great things. I would say the serious, unserious, and for entertainment only purposes conversation is really awesome. I would actually recommend, instead of entertainment purpose only, you say directionless, because I think that may apply to a fair amount of NFL franchises. As for our team, we should be thanking our lucky stars how far we've come. We all remember 3 first-round picks, Q. 3 first-round picks, and we whiffed on 2 out of 3. That's like a once-a-lifetime flub. Alex Featherwood, Damon Arnett, all that nonsense, we have moved way past that. So much so that the Raiders have decided to not only draft well, but to set themselves up for next year. We passed on a quarterback a couple of rounds because we knew next year the draft is deep in quarterbacks and we can still snag one of the teams. That's fantastic. So my 2 questions are this, Q. What's going on with Colton Miller? I really hope we don't let him go. That would immediately change us from a serious organization to an unserious one, in my opinion. And what's going on with Dylan Labe? Our running game stunk last year. I don't think it's on him. I think he has a lot of potential, and I hope we don't actually get rid of him. I think we should keep him from a special teams, but he has a lot of unchecked potential. Let me know what you think, Hugh. And stand for everything you do, man. Raiders.
Major Raider, thanks so much for the call. I like the perspective that you bring to the table, especially when it came to the draft and what they've done in the past, right? What they've done in the past compared to what they've done as of late. And I'll even include Tom Telesco last year. I know everyone doesn't agree because he didn't go get a quarterback, but I think Tom Telesco had a good draft a year ago. And I think John Spytek had a really good year. Now, obviously, we'll see, and we'll have more clarity on that the more years that these guys stay in the league. But I mean, looking back at 2024, we know what Brock Bowers is. We know what JPJ is. DJ Glaze, we saw what he did. I still have plenty of hope for DeCam Richardson. I think he's got a role in this league. That's 4 guys right there that I think that you could feel really good about, obviously with Brock Bowers being the home run. This year, Ashton Genty, right? Feel good about him. Feel good about Bech. I feel good about Porter, even though he's young. Got to figure out what he's going to do. I mentioned the offensive lineman in segment number 2, defensive tackles. There's 11 guys that were selected. I feel like you're going to come out of this draft with, 3 starters at least, right? At least 3 starters, maybe even 4. And then you have key role players as well. So, compare that to what they did. You mentioned the draft where they had 3 first-round picks, 2019, and only got 1 hit, and that 1 hit's not even on the team anymore. Yeah. It's a big time difference maker, right? They had 2 picks and they went with Henry Ruggs and they went with Damon Arnett, right? They had an opportunity to get Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, the Super Bowl champ for the Eagles. Not saying he would be the same player with the Raiders as he was with the Eagles, but at least you felt like you had really good quarterback play if they went and got him. They thought they were going to get him, in round 3? The Eagles were smart. They had a guy in Carson Wentz and they went and got Jalen Hurts anyway, even though Carson Wentz had just helped them get to, the Super Bowl, even though he got banged up, but he had a history of injuries, and they said, you know what, let's get some insurance. That was smart. As far as your questions go, Miller, my gut feeling tells me that they're going to let him play out this year or let him play out a lot of the year before they make a commitment to him because they're a new staff. Like, they know what he brings to the table. They can put on the film, but how does he fit in this scheme that Brendan Carroll and the Raiders are going to be running? Does he fit it well? Right, because a lot of it is, I feel like, going to be zone blocking, and Colton Miller hasn't necessarily always been a really good zone blocking offensive lineman. So what is it going to look like? Right, what is he going to earn? I think that they're going to make him do that. We'll see. I expect him to at least play this year with the Raiders, and if they feel like that they have adequate replacement, maybe they let him walk. Maybe they offer him a contract extension that might not be the most lucrative out there. But we'll see what Colton Miller earns. But I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon because he is a commodity that at least is going to be able to hold down his own, and he's healthy right now, which is a big deal. As far as Dylan Labe, I mentioned him in segment number 2. I honestly, and this is just me, I think he's fighting for a roster spot. This guy's a former 6th-round pick of the last staff, right? Tom Telesco's staff. I don't know what his role is. Special teams, he's supposed to be a special teams ace. We'll see what he does. At least he has that familiarity with Coach McMahon, who's still the special teams coordinator. But nothing's guaranteed. I thought he was going to get some burn last year at the running back position, and really didn't get too many opportunities at all, right? It just kind of is what it is. When he did get an opportunity to put the ball on the ground, right, and then it took a while for him to ever get back in the backfield. So he'll get some burn in training camp for sure. He'll get some burn in preseason, and again, just like everything else with Pete Carroll, what you earn is what you're going to get. So this staff didn't draft him so they could walk away from him. They can let him go when it comes down to cut down time and say, it wasn't our guy. We wouldn't have picked him. And there's nothing you can say about that. Not you, but the ownership can't complain that all that was a wasted pick. It wasn't John Spytek. It wasn't Pete Carroll's pick. So thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. We'll close out with a short and sweet text from Dan and KC. I'm really intrigued by the young rookie D tackles. With Wilkins being injured, one of them will have to step up. That's going to the conversation that we had in segment number 2, talking about the rookies who report to camp today. So Dan and KC, great way to close us out. We definitely appreciate that. Raider Nation, definitely give me your feedback on that subject and any other subject that we talked about. 707-654-4693. Again, this morning, 7:30 a.m. Pacific time, the Raider Squad Show. Chantel Chan, Lincoln Kennedy, and myself. I know we've been going Monday and Wednesday, but this week is Monday and Thursday. I don't know what next week will bring. We'll figure it out, I guess. We'll get to that hurdle. But 1 hour long, 1 hour strong live stream. If you're already subscribed to this podcast and our YouTube page, you're good to go. You'll get the notification when we go live. If you're not, well, go on and hit the subscribe button on this podcast and the YouTube page. Do something good for your country, man. Help us out. No, we're doing really good, though. Over 20,000 subscriptions on the YouTube page, and I couldn't even tell you how many subscriptions just wherever you find your favorite podcast. But the support for this podcast, whether it's the audio version or the YouTube, has been incredible since day one, since I took over following the 2017 season when John Gruden returned, John Gruden 2.0. It's been incredible. So thank you, Raider Nation, for that. Thank you, and thank you some more. So until tomorrow, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.